Welcome to The Real Life Buyer. Whether you are buying for yourself or your business, here you will find tips, techniques and knowledge to support your journey to buying smart. Interviewing business owners and technical experts to give you information and guidance before parting with your money. Save money, time and get what you want when you want it. Now introducing The Real Life Buyer, David Barr.
Hello and welcome to The Real Life Buyer. Today, I would like to introduce you to two sisters with a clear mission, and I quote, to inspire and develop the confidence of mid-level career women through education, inspiration, and support of workplace equality. Anne-Marie and Laura Bradbury have melded their expertise and skills in executive recruitment for global business and creative writing to offer high-quality content and knowledge in the pursuit of this goal. Anne-Marie works in recruitment as a talent acquisition advisor. She has successfully recruited multiple people into FTSE 500 roles. She has a focus on diversity and recruitment, whereas Laura is a copywriter who has interviewed brand CEOs and now runs a successful relationship blog. There is a suggestion that the growth in status and presence of women in the workplace may lead to negative impacts on men. Today, we will discuss how Anne-Marie and Laura see significant growth in the inclusion and equality of more women in the workplace. That will be a benefit to all. So, without further ado, hello Anne-Marie and Laura, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Oh, absolutely. You're very welcome. So if we could just start, obviously, I'm really pleased that you've joined me today and obviously look forward to this different discussion. Perhaps you could start by providing a little background on yourselves and your professional journey to date.
So, hi, I'm Laura. Around 4 years ago, I switched my career from makeup artist to writer. I went through, I guess you could say it was an early 20-something midlife crisis. And I just felt really bored. I was in my career, I felt a bit stuck. And I said to myself, what's the one thing I love doing? And quickly I discovered that was writing. So I became a blogger. I then went into freelance writing, became an online magazine deputy editor. And then I began working with clients as a copywriter, creating such blog posts and newsletters. And that's what I continue to do today.
And I am Anne-Marie. So I've worked in recruitment for over 7 years now. I started my career in external recruitment before moving to my current role, which is internal. So I work in-house for a global engineering and science business now. So I've been there nearly 3 years. And I'm really fortunate to work for a company that really celebrates diversity and inclusion. And I think that has played quite a large influence in, I guess, my sideline role you can add now as a blogger on a goodday.careers.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So how would you say diversity and inclusion has inspired your blog content?
So Laura and I go for walks all the time. We really like the outdoors, and we tend to take our dog, Baby, and we always have conversations around feminism, diversity. There's a statistic, there are more CEOs in the FTSE 500 named Peter than there are females. And we would just have long conversations about these types of topics. And Laura's very good with writing, and I'm learning a lot about diversity and the importance of diversity and inclusion within business. So we decided to put, I guess, our thoughts together and start this blog.
Yeah.
But I mean, Laura's really done a lot of the back work in the blog through experience of her last blog. But I think it's those conversations and the work environment that I've been in. And Laura speaks to a lot of strong women through her relationship blog. And this, I guess, inspired us to want to write about business and provide tips and tricks, advice on how women can be more confident in the workplace, and how people can promote diversity and inclusion across work.
One thing as well, we've learned so much from diversity. Of every single blog post, the statistics and the research we're coming across, it makes us realise how much work there is to be done still.
Okay, just a quick question on blogging. It's not something that I do myself. How often do you create a blog, and how long do you decide it should be in terms of length?
I tend to go for around the 1,000 words. That tends to be the mark. It takes, sometimes it depends. We might sit there or we read the news and straight away we go, wow, that's an idea for a blog post. Other times we can sit there, all these different titles, and we're just thinking none of these sound strong enough. So it really depends.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I just tend to research and write. I don't tend to ever count the words or the pages. It just flows for me. And we take it in turns. We aim to do one blog post a week.
Yeah.
So I'll do 1 week, Laura will do the other week, and it goes from there. Laura does read through my articles before posting them, though.
Writer/editor.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, just curious there. So rather than the conventional way of focusing on the negative aspects of there being perhaps fewer women in the workplace, can we sort of break down and explore the benefits that will be experienced by having more female colleagues for men to work alongside from both the career and personal perspectives?
Yeah, well, from a work perspective, I mean, of course, women will greatly benefit, not only with being more confident in gaining promotions and work roles, they're also going to have more voices from their own perspective. What I find really interesting is research shows both genders benefit, as well as corporations. With gender diverse teams have higher sales and profits. Employees are also reported as having more job satisfaction and less burnout. And I think you've got some statistics on this as well for...
Yeah, so Credit Suisse actually ran a report that reported 20. Sorry, let me start that again. So Credit Suisse did a report that showed the most diverse teams generate 2% more return on equity than non-diverse groups. And other companies such as IBM have stated that they see diversity as part of their innovation plans, and a lot of the data does suggest that the most diverse teams are the most innovative. So as a company, it really needs to be a priority if you want to stay winning and ahead of the game.
And then I would say from a personal perspective, so equality can create more flexibility around work. I still think we have this stereotype that men are almost like the leaders of a household and they bring in the most money, and women will focus on childcare. Research during the pandemic showed that more women take on household duties even while working the same hours. So I think by having more women in the workplace, it might actually change the role of the family in the home, and you could see more men taking on household duties.
Yeah, I also think from a personal perspective, I started my career in oil and gas recruitment, which was very male dominated. And I much prefer my work now, where I am mixing with a lot of diverse thoughts, people, different locations.
Far more creative input as well.
Yeah, so people actually read more now about a company's values, and people do want to be in more diverse teams and diverse groups. So again, I think, males and women are going to benefit from having more diversity through performance, being able to hire, better applicants, and the other topics that you just raised,
Yeah.
Laura.
Okay. Yes. It's quite an interesting subject. I've worked for quite a few large companies in my time, and personally can say I really enjoy having the mix of both ladies and gents in the room, because I get completely different take on things from the ladies, a different way of approaching a problem, perhaps in some ways perhaps a more inclusive and sympathetic approach to some subjects than guys, particularly. We all know guys can be a little bit tough and hard-nosed, or appear to be at times. So from a personal perspective, certainly with companies that are international, and I'm thinking of places like Sweden, Denmark, etc., where there seems to be quite a few ladies in the workplace. And I find that a much more fun environment, but also stimulating environment from the conversations that you have, the responses that come out, the ways of problem solving are very much different to a purely male focused meeting.
One thing I would add as well is one of my first blog posts, I did research that said how women almost adopt to a more masculine style of work. And so I think by having more women, that the masculinity can start to balance, and you can get more of the female perspective.
Yeah, no, and that's an interesting point you raise, because diversity only works if you have inclusion. If you hire lots of different people, ways of thinking, but you're not allowing them to be their true selves at work, they're going to spend too much time trying to conform to the normal way of working, and then they're going to be less productive, less happy, and that innovation piece that makes diversity so important goes away. So I think you're right there, in having more diversity in the workplace. I do think that benefits everybody as well, and I think it sort of balances out that work culture, and will help men with this whole masculinity thing of have to be the tough decision maker.
Yeah. Do you think there's much of a difference between the larger companies and the small to medium-sized companies in this aspect?
I don't think so. So I'm trying to think. I mean, diversity and inclusion is quite new. For me, I would say I only started really thinking about diversity in my last role, maybe the last year I was there, so about 4 years ago, where one of our clients in the US had requested and had cited for some more diverse candidates, because they felt as though on their site there was almost like a boys' club, and a lot of people went to the same school. They were in a relatively remote area, so sort of everybody knew everybody, and everybody knew everyone, rather. So it was first brought to my attention then, and I don't think there's a difference in small or large companies. But I didn't really have a lot of visibility until I moved to my current company, and I've only really seen it from this global perspective. So there probably isn't a difference. It might be easier to hit the diversity piece with a smaller company and less employees, but then it may be more difficult to attract people. So great question.
Sorry, I would actually say from personal experience, larger organizations usually have more policies in place. With smaller ones, it may go unnoticed. They may not be monitoring as well.
Yeah, not so formal in that respect. Yeah. Especially the larger you get, the more reporting there is, particularly to shareholders. And I guess that will be one of the questions that will perhaps feature in an annual report, perhaps. Okay, that's quite interesting. So why do you think change in this area appears to be slow? And what do you feel will help to break down the barriers and accelerate change?
I found research on Harvard Business Review, and they worked with a global firm to investigate why more women weren't in senior positions at this company. And data revealed long hours, which impact family life, and mothers taking accommodations influence the lack of women in senior roles. And what was interesting is that childless women fared no better in gaining promotions.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the work culture has been a reason for lack of diversity now. There are other points as well, or other theories that look at how people within business can often fail to see any inequalities within their company. And we recently discussed this topic on a blog post, actually, where men tend to focus on implementing policy. So they have an equality policy out there. So job done, they can tick the box, they're now a diverse company, but they don't necessarily focus on the results and how successful those policies have been. So it can be quite a sensitive subject when speaking to hiring managers even now, because people don't want to be seen as racist or sexist at all within the workplace, and bringing up topics around diversity can sometimes be quite difficult when speaking to people and challenging them. So that belief and not believing there's inequality, that has not helped either. And then in terms of how we change this, I think you really need to approach diversity from two angles. So I think you'd have to look at it externally, which is the change that you can maybe see or measure, such as having diversity goals, policies, and I think groups is now a popular thing. Mentors for females, etc. But I think, and this is where I think companies can not always get it right, you also need to look at the internal change and the change within people as well, because it really is a mentality shift and moving the mindset to see everybody as equal and to want to be more proactive in hiring diverse applicants. And I think when we touch upon diversity, it's so much bigger than just the way somebody looks or their sex. It's also about diversity of thoughts, and one of the areas that we train at my company is unconscious biases, and I found this topic really interesting, and it's actually taught me a lot about myself and how I think that I have had unconscious biases towards personality types. So I think if you are more extroverted, like I am, I tend to get on with you really well, warm to you, and maybe sell that candidate, better to a hiring manager. Whereas applicants that were maybe more shy, there wasn't a lot of conversation that diverted away from the interview. Those candidates I maybe wasn't as excited about. So it's even helped me, I think, really having to think about how I approach interviews, how I make sure everything is a fair process. And I think that's what companies need to do as well, is focus on that internal piece and make sure that all associates or employees are having training that also helps them change their mindset and how they view diversity.
I'm just interested from a male perspective, what would you give as your reasons for maybe why it's been a bit slow?
I guess in some ways it's cultural things from guys. Perhaps we've all been brought up in certainly my generation, because I'm getting old now. Is that certainly if I think back of my grandmother, for example, her priority, I know it's perhaps a silly example, was that the guys in the family always had their meal before the women. They always got served first, and they always had the best of this and the best of that. I remember this, vividly with my nan. And that was her mindset. This is, you always got to make sure that men are looked after first, which it didn't rub off on me. I always thought a little bit strange, to be honest. Why should I have my meal, a few seconds before my mum did, or something like that? So it was almost a case of this cultural bias from earlier times that tended to encourage that kind of thinking and behaviour. It didn't impact me, because I really enjoy working with ladies, and I embrace it. I think it's fantastic, because of the reasons I said earlier on. So I think there's still some time. You think of guys perhaps more senior in positions have been brought up with, you know, that kind of environment behind them. And so some may find that difficult to shake off, perhaps.
I mean, that's a good point. But, you
Yeah.
know, the shift in attitudes towards work has changed. I mean, in the 50s, for instance, it was much more common, wasn't it, that, you know, women aspired to, you know, get married and have children, and that has over time really shifted.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I certainly even look at my mum, for example. She made sure that I had life skills, such as I could do the ironing, I could cook for myself, I could do all those sort of things that perhaps you know, guys felt were unconventional. And I'm quite fortunate that my mum made sure that I could do all these things. I could stand on my own 2 feet. I didn't need, you know, like mum or a girlfriend or a wife around to do those things. Not many guys of my that, you know, I know now actually necessarily had that kind of training from your mum.
Yeah.
So she was quite forward in that respect, and it was an expectation that I should look after myself. So I did the guy type things. I worked with my dad in the garage, you know, all the sort of mechanic-y type things, but also could do the softer skills that perhaps people refer to. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I'm very lucky to work with a lot of people now, and a lot of those people are both males and females, and you know, it's a great working environment. It's quite normal. But I have been in other businesses that have been very male dominated, and that's, you know, a cultural thing. It's been in more heavy industry where it just tended to be guys did those sort of quite tough jobs, and the ladies, you know, did the conventional office type roles.
Yeah.
So,
One thing, going back to upbringing, I think me and Anne-Marie, certainly in my year, our mum was the only full-time working mum that I knew of when I was younger. Maybe that's even inspired us to want to focus on diversity and look more into this subject.
yeah, quite possibly. Perhaps I've had more influence from ladies than perhaps other guys would normally have. Maybe. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So we mentioned earlier on, I think we mentioned COVID, and has forced some changes. Basically, a lot of people have been at home for far more hours than they would normally have. And
Yeah.
that's obviously made people work from home as well. Have you observed any change in the way business and people view their beliefs in their roles and what they should be?
Well, I've really noticed, particularly on social media, it's far more people have created their own businesses and they've looked for second income. And of course, for example, because we've created our blog, A Good Day, I believe more people are focusing on side hustles. And it sounds a bit cheesy, but I would say they're focusing more on their dreams. I think the pandemic has really woke people up and they're looking at their lives and their roles and they're saying, you know, does this make me happy? What do I want to do in the future? There's also, now it's been in the news a lot about hybrid working. So you've got people choosing to work both from home and the office. Recently, actually, on a blog post, we found that research shows women prefer working more from home. And it did say this could potentially impact their position in the workplace because, of course, if more women are not in the office, this might impact the gender diversity.
Hmm.
I think one of the positives from COVID, and I take this as from a personal experience, is the flexibility that I'm hoping people will have post the pandemic with working. I know a lot of global organisations have already said and have committed to a hybrid model where employees will get to have some time from, you know, the office and some time from home, and that's really great to see. So as someone who works in talent acquisition, by allowing that flexibility, you're able to have a larger pool, I guess, of people that you can target, which makes finding the best talent a bit easier because you don't have to have someone that's in, you know, a 25-mile radius of the office. People are happier to commute a bit longer if they're, you know, they only have to be there 2 days a week. But also, nearly everybody I speak to at my company much prefers the flexibility. So I think we're all a lot happier. We can, you know, have better work-life balances.
More time for family.
More time for family. I mean, I've saved a fortune not having to travel to work. I think people are really changing how they view, work, and does it really need to be a 5-day working week in the office? And I know there are some exceptions there. A lot of the banks, I think, have said they would prefer to go back to a 5-day working week. So it'd be quite interesting to see what does happen, and if those companies that don't adopt a new way of working, if they do stay on top and innovative, or if they do need to change their model at some point.
So then I would then add to that, they're focusing more on their goals, and I have seen a lot more online. People are creating their own businesses, they're creating side projects, and we're a prime example with our own blog.
Yeah. Do you think some of this change has been because the conventional thought of having a job for life has been shaken even more? And so by having a side hustle, you're actually potentially having a second source of income, which makes you a little bit more secure in life.
I think it's partly that because the pandemic did bring about some job insecurity. And of course, there were certain industries where a lot of jobs went. But I also think it's making, from a personal perspective, it's making people really look at their lives. We've had all this time indoors to really think about what we actually want to do. And maybe it's made people more confident or more braver to say, actually, life is short. I'm going to go out there and do something. I'm going to have an extra hobby, or I'm going to also focus on this. And so I say it's a mix of that. Do you add anything?
Yeah, no, I think social media as well, the bigger that social media gets, I see all the time people promoting their own businesses or selling products on social media and recruiting people into those pyramids scheme. I think it's a pyramid scheme type companies. So I think that has been a big influence on people as well. And, as we have been at home, people are using the internet more and are on social media too. So that probably played a part.
Yeah, I think social media is making people want to be more of their own bosses. Maybe it's creating this idealized lifestyle of working however many hours you want. All the time I see YouTube videos on the little ads where it's got someone saying, do you want to work 3 days a week and earn this much? And so I think that kind of marketing maybe is playing a role to it as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thinking about yourselves in the respect that there's been many celebrated women of power and influence in history. Who would you like to highlight that have had that high level of impact on your beliefs and behaviors, and why did you choose them?
So there are so many inspirational females or leaders out there. Someone at the minute that has really inspired me is Whitney Wolfe Herd's. So she is the founder of Bumble and is the world's youngest self-made billionaire. But her story has really inspired me. So she founded Tinder with 2 other people, but was forced to leave due to sexual harassment. And I really like her story that she, still has come back with another business, a dating app that actually gives women more power as well, and is able to, make the first move. So the app and just the inspiration, I guess, of her story and how she was in a really bad place, but is now, a very successful businesswoman with her new app.
Well, years ago, I bought a book on the life of Coco Chanel, and I found it really fascinating how she pushed through all these barriers at a time. Never mind today, back then, women were definitely not businesswomen. I always found her really appealing. I think at one point in my teenage years, I went around wearing pearls, like this pearl necklace, trying to mimic her. And actually, in a way, Coco Chanel's played a huge role with women and diversity because she designed clothes to let women be more free and less restricted. And we actually created an Instagram post recently on how what women wear can influence both how they feel and their actions for the day, the overall productivity.
Yeah, I think we should add our mum as well. I would say our mum
Good.
has been a big inspiration.
Excellent. Yeah. Make sure you tick that box, for goodness sake.
Yeah, if she's listening.
Okay. So for those women who are seeking inspiration and encouragement, what key things would you recommend they consider in their pursuit of self-confidence and self-improvement?
So I would say to just go out there, try new things. I mean, I had so many insecurities. And in particular, when I switched my career, I kept telling myself, what if I'm not a good writer? What if no one reads my work? And then you have to kind of just accept that when you start off, you may not be perfect. I think a lot of people, when they start a business or they look out to improve themselves, they look at someone that's been doing something for numerous amount of years, and then they try to compare themselves. And I think with anything you do in life, whether it's through career or self-development, you have to accept that, it takes time. You've got to learn, you've got to make the mistakes. So that would definitely be my biggest advice.
Yeah, I think, and this might sound a bit basic, but just listening. So from working from home now a lot more, I think it's really easy to be on these global meetings and to zone out, start sending emails, and start working on something that will have a quicker impact on your day. But really, switching off your email, paying attention to the calls that you're on, gaining your knowledge, and that will help you become more knowledgeable in your field and give you more confidence when you do need to speak at a meeting or delegate to a team. I think listening is really a skill that is taken for granted.
And also, we do a lot, both of us are really into self-development and improving ourselves. And I think it's also what you tell yourself in the brain, like flipping the question around. So rather than saying, what if I'm not good enough? What about saying, what if I'm amazing? What if I do this and it works perfectly? So the language that you tell yourself is also really important.
Yeah, it's having the bravery to put yourself out there and, make you perhaps a little bit more vulnerable. And people are scared of that. I certainly see there's a lots of on social media, does this, but you see some fantastic orators, speakers who are so confident that it's always quite scary thinking, how could I ever compare to somebody of that stature and confidence? In some ways, they create perhaps a little bit more of a barrier, thinking, blimey, I can never compete with that. So why should I start? So I think it's just being honest, as you say, honest with yourself and say, look, I'm going to fall over. I'm going to fall off my bike, but I'm going to get on and start riding again. Just go back to when you were a child and you suffered failures, but you weren't put off by them. You just got on back on the horse, back on the bike and just kept going until you became obviously competent at those things. So, yeah, okay, that's really good. So we talked about quite a few things here. And before I ask one final question, looking at our time is running out, how would people learn more about your blogs, your work, and perhaps be inspired to follow you and take on board some of your thinking?
Well, our website is agoodday.careers. When you click on there, it has our social media linked. Our Instagram is at agoodday.careers. And then again, Pinterest is just one word, A Good Day Careers.
Okay. So here's the last question. Do you have any significant events, launches or plans in the near future that we should look out for? What's in the pipeline?
Nothing that is, we've got a few things, but we're still in concept stages.
A lot of brainstorming.
So no events just yet to speak of, but watch this space.
Yeah.
Okay then. Yeah. Excellent. I certainly shall, and I look forward to that. So, okay, so that's been a really interesting chat. I would like to perhaps, if we say in a year or so, if you're interested, follow up and see where you've got to in your journeys, and see what new inspirations you can share with the audience.
That'd be great. No, I've really enjoyed being on the podcast. Thank you for having us.
No experience.
Excellent. Absolute pleasure. Well, take care. You have a lovely evening. I hope it looks like where I am, the rain stopped, which is fantastic. So Otherwise, have a good time.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please subscribe and leave a positive review if you can spare a minute or two. If you would like to contact me, my email address is david@thereallifebuyer.co.uk, or find me at Real Life Buyer on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, where you're welcome to direct message me. I look forward to you joining me on future episodes. Take care, and remember, save money and buy smart.